Hi guys, and welcome back to the channel. So today I'm going to be taking a look at the Motorola G31, which came out around 6 months ago, so I am a bit late making this video, but it was introduced as, of course, an upgrade from the Motorola G30, but it'd be interesting to see if the G31 is in fact an upgrade over the G30, as it does make a couple of questionable changes, so I'm just going to dive into those in this video. Checking out my YouTube analytics the other day, I did notice that a very few who watch these videos are actually subscribed to the channel, so if you do enjoy the videos that I'm putting out, please consider subscribing so you don't miss out on future videos. Okay, so before I start this video, I just want to quickly talk about the time scale when it comes to making my videos. Now, unfortunately, I'm not in a financial position to review every budget smartphone the moment that it comes out, but I do like to try and look at them somewhere down the line if I can, so that's why this video is a little bit late. But with that said, let's talk about the design of the Motorola G31. Now, for the back, you get a standard plastic back with your triple camera setup up in the top left-hand corner. I've got it in this nice baby blue colour, but it is actually available in a grey colour, which I didn't find to be quite as nice as this, but this is quite a strong blue colour. I don't really know if you can see, probably not very well in this camera lighting, but it is a really nice blue colour. You do get the standard plastic frame as you would find with other budget Motorola devices as well, and the good thing is that does nicely match the colour of the back, even though it's not a unibody design. Up the top you get a 3.5mm headphone jack and a microphone, and on the bottom you get another microphone, your USB-C charging port and your speaker grill. On the right hand side you get your dedicated Google Assistant button, which is unfortunately something that I never use, but it is always there. Your volume rockers and your power button with integrated fingerprint sensor, which is nice and responsive. I didn't have any issues of it not reading my fingerprint, so that's a nice addition as well. And then on the left of the phone you get your SIM tray, which houses of course your SIM card, but you can have a micro SD card. Unfortunately there isn't a dual SIM plus a micro SD card, so to use the SD card you do have to sacrifice that second SIM slot. But that's not the end of the world for me, as I just only use one SIM card at a time. Up front you get a 6.4-inch AMOLED display with a standard 60Hz refresh rate. So unfortunately they did drop the 90Hz display found on the G30, but it was upgraded to a full HD display. Now for me it's not the end of the world, but I kind of would have preferred a 90Hz display. Even if they'd have kept the 720p resolution, I think I would have preferred the 90Hz display, especially going from my Motorola Edge, which has got a nice OLED 90Hz display as well. I really would have liked a higher refresh rate display. But that being said, it's not a bad display by any stretch of the imagination. I did, however, find that the colours are a lot more saturated on this Motorola G31 than what I found on my Motorola Edge. Despite having the settings on both phones set to saturated, they are actually a lot more saturated on the G31 than what I found on my Motorola Edge. So it did come as a little bit of a shock having such saturated colours, and the trouble is, moving it down to just the normal mode, it did make them look a bit dull. So it kind of went from one extreme to the other, but other than that it's a really nice display, nice and responsive, albeit a little bit slow because of that lack of the 90Hz refresh rate, but it's a pretty good display nonetheless. As for software on the Motorola G31, you do get the standard stock Android than what you do find on other Motorola devices, but unfortunately the Motorola G31 is still stuck on Android 11. There is no Android 12 update on it as of yet, but it is running March 2022 security patch, so it is almost up to date with the security patches, but unfortunately there is no Android 12. But in terms of the usability of the stock Android, it is as clean as you can find on a Google phone or anything like that. There's no skin or anything like that. So I do find that I do enjoy the user experience on Motorola devices more than I would do on, say, a Samsung or Xiaomi or something like that. As for performance, powering the Motorola G31 is MediaTek's Helio G85 processor. Unfortunately, this is probably 2 years old now, so I'm not really sure why Motorola decided to use such an old processor in such a new phone. It is also built on an older 12 nanometer fabrication as opposed to the 8, 7 or even 6 of some of the newer budget processors. Other phones that are powered by the G85 include the Realme 7i and the Xiaomi Redmi Note 9, which we know is a very old phone. So it is a bit strange why Motorola decided to use that processor in this phone, considering that the G30 used a Snapdragon 662. I would have liked for Motorola to use maybe even a newer MediaTek processor or even a newer Snapdragon 600 series, which would have even made it a definite upgrade in performance over the G30. And as for day-to-day performance using the MediaTek Helio G85, day-to-day use is absolutely fine. There's no stutters or anything from general navigating of the interface. I did do a little bit of light gaming on Need for Speed, and providing you don't have the settings turned too high or anything like that, it runs absolutely fine. If you're someone that does a lot of Call of Duty or Genshin Impact or something like that, then I don't think you'll find that the G85 inside the G31 will be any good for that. You're going to want to look elsewhere for a more powerful processor. But in terms of light gaming, camera use, just navigating through the UI and just the standard messaging and all that sort of stuff, it'll be absolutely fine, no problem. The Motorola G31 comes with a large 5000 mAh battery packed inside. Unfortunately, charging speeds are pretty slow. It does support up to 20 watt charging, but unfortunately you only get a 10 watt charger supplied in the box. So if you want to take advantage of that faster 20 watt charging, you will have to buy a separate plug. So 10 watt charger in the box, and it is just a standard USB-A to USB Type-C plug. So like I said, if you want to get that slightly faster charging, you will have to invest in a plug. So charging takes over 2.5 hours to get from 0 to 100% because of that slow charger in the box. So that's just something to bear in mind if you're looking at the Motorola G31. There are two storage options available on the Motorola G31. You get 4 GB of RAM on both, but you can either have 64 or 128 GB of expandable storage. And lastly, if we come to talk about the triple camera system found on the back of the Motorola G31, headlined by a 50 megapixel f1.8 primary camera, backed up by an f2.2 8 megapixel ultra wide with a 118 degree field of view. And then lastly, you have a 2 megapixel macro camera with an f2.4 aperture. So the Motorola G31 does drop the 2 megapixel depth sensor, but for me personally, it's not the end of the world, and it still does a pretty good job in portrait shots anyway. And photos from the main camera of the G31 come out really nice. There's plenty of detail. That pixel binning technology just helps to bring in extra light and all that sort of stuff to produce some really nice photos. One thing I did find is that actually on the display of the G31, the photos just looked oversaturated with boosted colors to unrealistic levels. And once I put them on my laptop, they actually looked pretty good. The colours looked a lot more natural, more true to life to what I was actually seeing in my eyes. So I think that was just down to the colour settings that I had on the G31. And like I said before, when you take it off the saturated settings, they just go from being saturated to really dull. So I kind of ended up having the color settings of the display on saturated anyway. So but once you get the photos, like I said, off the phone onto my laptop, it was absolutely fine. So ultra wide photos, 8 megapixels. I'm going to sound again like a broken record that these are less detailed, and of course that narrower f2.2 lens lets in less light, but for an 8 megapixel ultra wide, they're pretty standard, so I wouldn't complain anything too much. And then the 2 megapixel macro camera is about right for every other 2 megapixel macro camera on the market. Not the best detail photos, but they're great for a little bit of fun. Okay, so selfie video coming from the Motorola G31, coming from this 13 megapixel sensor. It doesn't look too bad. I mean, on the screen of the G31, the colours look completely different to what they are in real life. Now, my shirt is coming out really pink looking, but it's definitely not. It looks like I've got lipstick on, and I think that's down to, like I've said in the previous sections to do with the photos, I think that's just how the display setting is set to saturated, because it just looks over processed and very unrealistic. But I'm hoping once I've taken it off the phone and put it onto my laptop that it will look a little bit more natural. and let me know in the comments what the audio pickup is like on the Motorola G31. Okay, so apologies for not mentioning the resolution of the video from the front-facing camera. It tops out at 1080p at 30 FPS, as does the video quality from the rear camera as well. Let me know in the comments what you think of the video quality. I can't see what it looks like, but I'm hoping that it will be a lot better than what the selfie camera is, and I'm hoping that the colour reproduction will be a little bit more natural than what I found on the selfie camera. But again, let me know in the comments what you think. So that's my look at the Motorola G31. Overall, it's a pretty good phone. I mean, I really like the look of it. This blue colour is nice, it's different. It's got a really nice AMOLED display, but the unfortunate thing is, of course, it's dropped to a 60 Hz down from a 90 Hz, and just that saturated setting is just a bit too much for me personally. Performance is okay. I wouldn't say it was much of an improvement over the G30. I would personally prefer a Snapdragon processor over a MediaTek. And then you've got that slow charging, which out of the box, I think you get a faster charger supplied in the box when you buy a Motorola G30 than you do this G31, although they do support the same up to 20 watt fast charging between the G30 and the G31. So if you have a G30, should you upgrade to a G31? Personally, I wouldn't bother. I would stick to the G30. But if you've got an older Motorola device, the Motorola G31 is a pretty good option. And at the moment, it's available for about 150 quid. So it's a really good price for a pretty good phone. But let me know in the comments what you think of the Motorola G31. Would you consider buying one, or do you have one already? Or is there another Motorola device that you would consider buying instead? And if you did like this video, please do consider subscribing so you don't miss out when I bring out new videos. And thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.